I want to share a piece of the conversation that you had with Steve on that podcast and then ask you about it. So here's Gabrielle appearing on a podcast from a couple of days ago with Steve Abramowitz. Go. Come on. Let me know. Here it comes. Before you know it.
A memorial was held in Franklin's Monticello neighborhood on March 30th to honor the life of Cindy Peak, a victim of the March 27th shooting at the Covenant School in Green Hills that made national news, of course. Peak was a Franklin resident and educator who was working as a substitute teacher at the school. The community gathered to remember her and honored her with a community walk around the neighborhood. How do you feel about the entire Covenant School issue? And obviously it had its ripple effects everywhere in the state, including Franklin, which I just told you Cindy Peak was here. What are your thoughts on it?
I have a whole different twist on that. The Wednesday before that shooting was when the police came to my house to register the reports for the phone calls and the death threat. And I looked at that officer and I said, I'm telling you right now, I have zero basis for what I'm about to tell you other than my gut. Nobody's tipped me off. Nobody said anything, but my gut is telling me there's going to be an active shooter. I felt it. I just felt it. Don't ask me how. It could be a Holy Spirit thing, but I felt an active shooter coming. So when that happened on Monday, I was not surprised. So from contacts that I have directly in Nashville, within 30 minutes of that shooting, I had the whole story. I know what happened. There was no threat to anyone else. It was a love triangle going on with an individual that worked at that school related to the principal who was getting counseling from the pastor. And the person they were having the love triangle with was just about to get married. And they were trying to pry this Audrey Hale off of the relationship with this other female that was getting married and who might now be married. I don't know, but they had a couple of transgenders in the wedding party. It was the principal's daughter. So Audrey went with the intent to kill the pastor's daughter, had to take out 2 children to get to the daughter, accidentally shot the janitor, and had to kill Cynthia Peak because she was in there with the principal.
All right, so Gabrielle, that's just an incredibly explosive story that you told 2 nights ago on Steve Abramowitz's podcast. Let me start here. Do you stand by that?
Oh, I do stand by it. Absolutely, I do. And furthermore, if that got out, it wouldn't help the gun control narrative either. Gun control narrative aside, let's talk about a couple of the details that are inaccurate. The contact that you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Who was that? I don't share any contact.
Why wouldn't you?
Because people tell me things in confidence, and I don't divulge what other people tell me.
Well, the person that told you what you just related to Steve told you something that is full of inaccuracies. Are you aware of that?
Oh, I'm pretty sure well, if you want to listen to the media narrative, it's one thing, but if you want to know what
I'm listening to people who were on the scene and who toured the facility in the aftermath. You stated that Cynthia Peak died with Catherine Kuntz, right?
In the general vicinity.
That is incorrect, ma'am.
Okay,
it is absolutely a fact that it is incorrect.
Okay, well, there's a lot of facts that are out there that aren't quite factual. Mm-hmm. Because that's the way the media
that's my issue with you, because you're presenting things that are in fact completely devoid of reality.
No, I will stand by my story.
Well, you can stand by your story all you want. Your story is completely inaccurate, and
you can have your own opinion. But
no, ma'am. I don't have an opinion. I've spoken to people who've toured the scene. Have you?
No, I didn't.
There are people dead, and you're spreading gossip and rumors that are lies.
No, I think it's horrible that somebody
died. It is not, ma'am. It is not a fact that Pastor Scruggs was counseling the shooter. It is not a fact. That was a rumor that came out that was immediately dispelled by the school and all of the participants.
Well, people can believe whatever they want to, and there was no threat to anyone else from this shooting. That I know to be a fact.
Regardless of this, why are you spreading scurrilous gossip and innuendo without backing it up with factual information? Tell me who told you this information 30 minutes after it happened.
No, I'm not going to share it.
Why wouldn't you share that to back up your story?
Because I don't need to share that.
Ma'am, you are a member of the Franklin community in good standing. You're an alderman, and you're spreading. You are spreading lies.
No, I'm not spreading lies.
It is a lie, ma'am. It is a lie that Cynthia Peak died with Catherine Kuntz. They were in separate parts of the building.
Well, okay, you can say whatever you want to, and you're the media, and you're welcome to. And I know what my source is, and I know my source is very accurate.
That gave you this information 30 minutes after the shooting happened?
Yes.
Did you call them, or did they call you?
I don't even remember who called who first.
You don't remember who called who?
No, I don't. I get a lot of phone calls, especially about that time.
Uh-huh. So someone, or you called someone, or someone called you, and they said, "Ooh, did you hear about this? I know exactly what happened." 30 minutes after the shooting occurred.
This person was very
before the woman was identified, ma'am. You're claiming that you had the information.
Trust me, I had a very credible source.
No, I'm not going to trust you. I'm going to ask you again to tell me how you knew the full story before the shooter had been identified.
Well, maybe that's why Melissa Joan Hart was there. She must have known it was going to happen also.
And how would she have known? So you're saying that some wait a minute. I'm sorry.
Quickly?
So are you saying that that individuals in the community had a prior knowledge that this shooting was going to occur before it happened? Is that your statement?
How did Melissa Joan Hart get there?
I'm asking you, are you stating that someone had prior knowledge that the Covenant School was going to be attacked? And if so, have you spoken to authorities and told the authorities who had that prior knowledge?
I wouldn't have any clue if anybody knew. I don't even know Melissa Joan Hart. But I know she was present almost immediately thereafter, as well as another woman.
She was driving down the road, man.
Shooting site very quickly thereafter.
You stated that Mike Hill was, quote, accidentally shot. Are you aware of the order in which this happened?
Yeah, watch the video.
And what did you glean from the video, although you already knew the full story, but who was shot first in this instance?
I watched the video.
Who was shot first, ma'am?
I'm not here. I'm not part of that incident. Thank you.
You claimed, you repeated on a podcast publicly that you had the full knowledge of what went down that day at the Covenant School. I think it is an attack on that school. It is an attack on this community. It is a dastardly shame that you are allowed to continue as an alderperson when you are spreading lies and innuendo about what happened that day.
Way as a media host, and you're looking for ratings.
I'm looking for nothing but the truth, ma'am. I want to know who you claim told you this information 30 minutes after the shooting happened.
Someone that had accurate information.
Who would that be, ma'am? Someone in law enforcement?
I don't give my sources. I'm so sorry.
You don't give your sources?
I'm not part of this.
Well, I hope that you are. I hope that the Metro Nashville Police Department contacts you so they can get this very valuable. Why have you not been in contact with the police department if you believe this information to be true?
Has all they need. I assure you, they're very competent.
Well, you get your facts wrong. You get basic information about the case wrong. You spread scurrilous lies about people that died that day.
No, I have not spoken about any of them that died individually, or trust me.
Ma'am, you said that ma'am. You said, we just listened to you. You said that Haley Scruggs was targeted because Pastor Scruggs was counseling the shooter. That is incorrect. That is incorrect. That is a lie.
Well, I don't know where you got your information, but I do know where I got mine. And anybody is allowed to have any opinion they want based on the information they got it. And media is not always the most accurate source of information.
Well, I would love for you to tell me what your
I would
love for you to tell me what your accurate source of information is while you drag people through the mud with what you claim to know.
Share. Time will tell, but I am telling you, I am sure of my information.
You are sure of your info. You stand by your story.
I do stand by my story.
Outside the fact that I just factually demonstrated that parts of your story are inaccurate.
Were you there?
No, but I talked to people who were, ma'am.
Great, and I did too.
We'll let the audience decide. I don't know how you.
The video doesn't quite match with many things.
Within 30 minutes, you were told this story before the identity of the shooter came out, and I want to know how that happened.
From a phone call.
Someone told you who the shooter was before the authorities.
They never told me a name. They thought it was a teenager.
Well, then how did you know that there was this so-called relationship?
Shortly thereafter.
How did you know 30 minutes after this happened that this was a lover's quarrel, which is what you said 2 days ago?
Yes, it's what I was told.
It's what you were told.
Yes.
I know you're a church-going woman. I hope you get down on your knees and pray about this.
Well, great. And you too. I hope you go to church too.
Good for you. Thank you, Gabrielle.
Awesome. Thank you.
I hope that you're forced to resign your position as alderman in Franklin, Tennessee. It is a gross display of lies and innuendo what this woman is doing. And she needs to be called out on it. And if I seem to be harsh on her, it's because I was. Because I've spoken to enough people and I have enough sources that understand that this woman is a liar. We'll be back. 5 today. In the meantime, I want to reflect on a conversation that we just had, and if you missed it, I'll kind of catch those of you just joining us up for a moment and explain why I was so heated, angry, and passionate during my conversation with Gabrielle Hanson. Gabrielle Hanson is a person I do not know. I became aware of her due to a podcast that she was on in which she claimed to have intimate, detailed knowledge of what happened at the Covenant School on the day that it happened, knowledge that we played on the air, and she confirmed that she stood by. I do believe that she should be held to a higher standard, considering that she's an alderman at large for the city of Franklin. I believe it is an embarrassment for the city of Franklin that this woman is an elected official. And I said as much at the end of our interview. If you missed it, and I won't belabor the point, Gabrielle Hanson claims that she claimed that she had a premonition that something like this was going to happen, be that as it may. She then claimed that she had a conversation, could not remember if she called the person or the person called her, but she had a conversation with a person that she would not name 30 minutes after the events at Covenant School occurred, in which she was told the full story. I'm not going to repeat the full story because I believe it is chock full of lies, and it certainly is chock full of actual inaccuracies. I noted some of those inaccuracies as I was listening to the podcast that she was on a couple of days ago. And it was because of those inaccuracies that I invited her on the show today. I believe that Gabrielle Hanson is putting herself in front of dead people. And that's wrong. She's making claims that were debunked hours after they came up and standing by them. It was initially reported very soon after this event occurred that Pastor Scruggs, Chad Scruggs, was counseling the shooter. That was according to a former pastor at the school, who then later said that he was mistaken and that he apologized for the inaccurate statement. You see, when you further these types of lies and inaccuracies, you galvanize untruths in the minds of the people that had to suffer through that day. When you claim, and it might seem like a small thing to some, but it is not to me, especially when people like this are in positions of authority. When you claim that young Haley Scruggs was targeted, when the facts of the case do not present that that is true. Now, look, this woman said she wouldn't reveal the source of her information. I'm not going to reveal the source of my information either, but I know people that have read the manifesto, that have looked at portions of the manifesto, and that have told me that this is not the case. I'm not claiming to have any special or particular information outside of that which we can glean in the media to try to make sense of the senseless as we try to do this. But I do think it's wrong when you present factually inaccurate statements about the dead. I do think it's wrong when you run around presenting on public forums that you know exactly what happened and how and why when it's not true. When you say that Cynthia Peak was killed with Catherine Kuntz, that's not true. That's a factual inaccuracy in your story. When you say that Mike Hill was accidentally killed by the shooter, that's not true. And for everything that I know about this case, it is not true that the shooter was targeting any particular individual outside of wanting to kill as many people as possible. And this shooter had wanted to kill as many people as possible for the last at least decade of their lives. The truth matters to me, and I hope it does to you. I do not like liars. And I do not like people who choose to put themselves in front of a story like this when people are dead and people are suffering. So if I was rude to Gabrielle Hanson, my reasoning is this. It was on purpose because the woman deserves it. 615-737-9986 is our telephone number, 615-737-9986. The community that we live in continues to suffer over this. And part of my frustration and anger at Gabrielle Hanson and her decision that 30 minutes after the fact that a random person had a conversation with her, she couldn't remember who called who or whatever. But she has this own special, particular, unique, factually accurate information that nobody else has but her. It just hurts me to my soul. And it reminds me of how this story has been taken away from the victims. It reinvigorates my frustration and anger at the Bullhorn Trio in the Tennessee House of Representatives. It reinforces my belief that sadly the media is more interested and invested in agenda than it is in truth. And I don't know Gabrielle Hanson from Adam's House Cat. But I know this. The citizens of Franklin ought to be looking for a new alderman. If this is, you can do better than that. It's not only irresponsible, it's gross. Brian is in Mount Juliet. Brian, thank you for your call. Good afternoon, sir.
Thank you. I had a question. I overheard the conversation between you and the alderman, and I was kind of curious. She said she went based off of something that she heard from a source that she wasn't willing to disclose. And then you heard otherwise from someone who actually walked the scene. My only question is, could the manifesto possibly have some information in there that might expose some of this? And how do you know for sure that your source is more correct than hers? I'm just curious. You kind of went after her pretty hard, and she stood by her word.
That's fair. That's fair, and I understand, and it is fair. Yeah. I would love nothing more than to tell you who my source was, Brian, but that would be a violation of confidence. I promised someone.
You asked her who hers was,
and she didn't tell me.
Right.
She didn't tell me.
And you're not telling me yours. So my question to you is, what's so good about your source over her source?
I know.
At the end of the day,
I mean,
nobody was there.
No. I mean, it's a fair question, but let's walk through this, right? I trust my source because I know my source, and I know my source was on the scene. I know my source walked the scene. I know, I know that person, right? And I know that they would not lie to me about the factual evidence that was laid out at the scene of the Covenant School. So but Brian, you don't know because I have promised not to say. So you get to decide whether you believe me or not. I think Gabrielle Hanson is full of crap. I don't believe that anybody talked to her 30 minutes after with any identifiable information. I don't believe that anyone with any factual information called her 30 minutes. I mean, just think about it, Brian. Do you believe that somebody called her 30 minutes after this shooting happened and told her exactly what happened?
I think we're going to find out if we can get the manifesto out.
Well, but, I mean, it's a question. I'm not coming after you. But, see, my source told me weeks after, right? She says that she was called 30 minutes after the shooting happened, and they told her everything that had happened before the identity of the shooter was known.
So here's the thing. It's a question of whether or not she went there to kill lots of people or certain people. And that manifesto will tell you that. I believe it will, and I believe that's why they're not releasing it. And I think until we know for sure, she stood by her source. She stood by what she said. I think we should give her the benefit of the doubt until the manifesto
I'm not giving her a bit of the benefit. She had factual information wrong in the story that she told, Brian. I know that, and she conceded to it.
Your source.
No. It is a matter of fact that Cynthia Peak and Catherine Kuntz were not killed in the same room.
Okay, that may be, but didn't she say that someone was shot accidentally?
She said that Mike Hill was shot accidentally, but she didn't know the order of the shooting. Mike Hill was the first person killed. He was just outside of the doorway when that evil shooter shot through the glass door. He was just to a room down the hall and to the right, and she shot through the door, walked through the door. You can see that on the video. As soon as she walks through the door, soon after, she swings to the right. Mike Hill's coming out of the door, and she shoots him dead. He was the first person that she killed intentionally, not accidentally.
Okay. Well, speaking of the video, I noticed there wasn't any timestamps on it. I thought that was pretty strange. And I also noticed there was a lot of other things that went on with this entire crisis that makes one want to continue to raise questions. And the fact that they're not releasing this manifesto, even Elon Musk commented on Twitter yesterday.
I do believe, and I've been calling for it, and I think you've heard me do it, Brian. I do believe that would clean up some of this. I don't think it's going to clean up everything because it's my source. And once again, you can trust my sources or not. And these are fair. These are very fair comments, Brian, and I appreciate your call. It's my understanding that she does not identify specific people in that manifesto, that she does more broadly and generally talk about wanting to kill people, and she gets very specific about how she plans on doing it. That is what my understanding is. It is 5:23 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. UTN. About a little less than 10 minutes on the drive. Matt Murphy in for Brian Wilson today and tomorrow. Brian back on Monday. We'll get to as many of your calls as possible. I'll shut up and let you talk. It has been a lively day, to say the least. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Let's see who has been holding the longest. I believe it's Todd. Hey, Todd. Glad you called. Good afternoon. Hey, Todd.
Sir.
Hey, Todd.
Good. Yes, sir. You there?
Yes, sir. I'm here. What's on your mind?
Oh, hey, I just want to tell you, you're spot on the alderman from Franklin down there. You are absolutely spot on. And if her source is that good, maybe she needs to go to work for the police department down there in Nashville and give them a little bit of heads up on when stuff's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, Yes, I mean I agree. I mean I would love it if the Metro Nashville Police Department would contact Ms. Hanson and try to ascertain exactly what she knew and when she knew it and what she's been told and when she's been told it. That would be a good thing. Dwight is next. Hey Dwight, how are you? Hey Dwight. D-White.
Dwayne?
Oh, I'm sorry. It said Dwight. Dwayne. Well, we got the first two letters right. Hey, Dwayne.
Okay.
You're
pretty slick, man. Hey, look. This woman had a long connection with this school. She went to that school. So how do you know what you're talking about? This shooter had a long connection with that school. You know that.
Yes, the shooter went to the school. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's true.
Yes, sir. She went to school. She had a long connection with this school.
Yes.
I mean, so how do you know what you're talking about?
Yes, we've now repeated the same thing twice, so I'm going to move on to another caller. Thank you, Dwayne, for the call. I know that I don't talk about things that I don't know about. That's all I can tell you. The things that I try to piece together are things that I believe to be true at the time that I say them, that I've pieced together through information that I've gotten from individuals and sources that I have in Nashville and the surrounding communities. So you can believe me or not. You don't have to not. I mean, it's up to you. Mark is next up. Hey, Mark.
Is this Matt?
This is. Thank you for calling, Mark. How are you?
Matt, good, thanks. Thanks for having me on. Listen, first-time caller. I've listened to your station for many years, even before Phil Valentine. And I'm going to take issue with you on that discussion that you had with Gabrielle Hanson for one reason only. I do not know all the facts. I saw the same videos that everybody saw on TV with the shooter shooting her way in and that kind of thing. I don't know who she encountered first except what we read in the paper. But I know Gabrielle Hanson personally from going to church with her. And I can say this, absolutely hands down, her character is absolutely impeccable. I know her and her family, whatever her sources, whatever it is she had to say, I put trust in her. I mean, here's the thing. With Gabrielle Hanson, I don't believe that you gave her a fair opportunity for public discourse. And that's what you guys in this station is all about, freedom of speech, right? The First Amendment. And I think that the power that you have in the media of trying to shred her and humiliate her on the air was inexcusable. I really do. I trust her more than I trust you, Matt. I'm sorry. That's the way I feel.
That's fair. Mark, you're friends with her. That's fair. Just know that there are factual inaccuracies in the story that she's telling.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And you know, like I said, I don't know all the facts, but I do know her.
And I would implore upon you, and I understand your friends, and I'm not going to try to dissuade you in any way on that. What you're saying to me is fair, especially coming from someone who's a friend. I would expect that friends of Gabrielle would be mad at me right now. I would expect that. I mean, I'm a grown boy, but here's what I would say.
Well, I'm calling to
here's what I would say. Just tell me how believable it is that someone unrelated to this story would get a phone call 30 minutes after the shooting and get all of the details of the story. Just think about that for yourself. I don't expect you to answer. Just think about that for yourself. And we'll move on from there. Mark, your comments are completely fair. I understand why you're mad at me. I understand. I'd be mad at me too if I were you. It's 5:32 on Super Talk. 99.7 WTN.